Everyone. My name is Hady Raphael, and this week on the show, Aaron Herrera joined CF Montreal. Hernan Lozada is named as the new head coach of CF Montreal, and the club confirms its staff. Victor Wanyama, who thought we thought he was gone, is back with the Bleu Blanc Noir. All of that and a lot more on episode 114 of The Ball Is Round. Yeah, so this week I'm joined by none other than our friend Eve Powell and, of
hmm
course, Elias Grigoriadis, that's here, I think, for the third or fourth time already.
Third time.
How are you guys? First of all, Happy New Year. How are you?
Happy New Year. Hanging in there. Getting excited though with preseason news coming out.
Yeah, yeah, exciting. Yeah, Elias.
Hi, Hadi. Thank you for having me on again. Happy New Year. It's gonna be fun. Preseason starts tomorrow officially, so I'm looking forward to see how everything's gonna line up. The first training session is tomorrow, so it's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be
hmm
fun, I think, and there's also media availability also for the coach and a couple of players. I hope to be there. I have an appointment a bit before, so maybe I'm going to be a bit late, but I'm going there. I think tomorrow I'll be on the ground, hopefully. Elias, I know, like, we know a bit about Eve. You know a bit about me, guys. Elias, I know you've been here a couple of times, but since you're going to be here for a couple of months, week in, week out, can you just tell us a bit about yourself? Just introduce yourself a bit for our listeners before we start altogether.
Yeah, of course. I've been covering CF Montreal for a little under 2 years now. I do it for the Canadian Press. I do some other writing for Yahoo Sports as well, but my main focus is obviously CF Montreal. I have done some other stuff. I've done Alouettes. I've done Canadien. But yeah, it's just kind of getting started out here. So it's I'm very excited, and yeah, I'm just
hmm
really excited to also be joining you guys for the foreseeable future. And thank you for obviously thinking of me when you're looking for somebody. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we're
it's I
happy to
think
have you.
yeah, we're very happy to have you. Thank you for accepting the invitation, and I think it's going to be very fun. To hear your thoughts going forward during the CF Montreal 2023 season. But before we start talking about CF Montreal, we need to take a moment to say goodbye to the king of soccer, Pelé. Winner of three World Cups in 58, 62, and 70. He has touched so many generations with his football skills, but also outside the pitch for his outspoken support of politics that improve the social conditions of the poor in Brazil. He played his whole career as a player in Brazil with Santos before playing a couple of years with the New York Cosmos, averaging a goal a game during his whole career. Amazing player. After retiring, Pele's name was always associated with greatness, or more, with Michel Platini, three-time Ballon d'Or, saying, "There's Pele the man, and then Pele the player, and to play like Pele is like to play like God." Or Cristiano Ronaldo, who said Pele is the greatest player in football history, and there will only be one Pele. Eve, what does Pele represent to you?
To me, Pele is like hands down the most talented, most gifted, most natural footballer I think we've ever seen. I like as you mentioned a minute ago, there is only one. There has only been one. It's hard to imagine somebody else who could ever come, even close. We've seen some great players, but still, nobody holds a candle to what he could do on the pitch. So definitely a big loss for the beauty in the beautiful game.
Exactly. Elias, do you think we'll ever see a player win three World Cup in their career? Is it possible?
with players extending their careers a lot longer nowadays, I think it's possible. I think one of the one of the most important things is winning a World Cup on your first try. So I see
hmm
someone like Kylian Mbappe who won a World Cup when he was 18, and
He's
the
with
part
Paris. We don't like Parisians, man.
but he's part of this friend. That's true, but he's part of this French group, right? That's young and it has
Yeah.
even more young talent coming up, right? So it's all about first of all, you having a long career, but also you being part of a football country that can dominate for not just 10 years like Spain did, but for almost like 15,
Hmm.
20 years, because
Yeah.
you're gonna have to throw in times you lose, for example, like this World Cup that just ended, right? So I think if anyone is best set for winning three in their career, it's probably Kylian Mbappe. um just because of the fact that you just have to start as young as possible. Pele won his first one as a teenager as well.
Hmm.
So if it's going to happen, I think that's the person I'd put my money on the most to win it.
Fair
Interesting.
enough.
Interesting take. Interesting take. I don't think it's
That is
ever
like,
going to
oh
happen.
no.
I don't think it's ever going to happen because back
Mm.
then you had 16 teams. Now in 2026,
Yeah.
with the number of teams increasing to 48, having
48.
the same team win it three times in 5 or 6 World Cup.
Hmm.
It's a very, very tough, and we have so much talent. And you talked about the fact that players are extending their careers, but it's due to the technological
Yeah,
advances in the game too. So with the technological advances, you have so many countries that are able to bring their A game, and that wasn't the case back then. So, and that's why you've seen so many other countries winning the World Cup lately in the last five World editions. So I don't think we'll see it. We'll see someone win the three times the World Cup, but it is possible, as you said, if they win it young. There's always a possibility.
Hmm.
Completely agree. Just one last thing about Pele. It's funny when you look at old footage, usually from whatever it is, not only about soccer, but in basketball, whatever, and you look at the great players that have played the game, and you always look at their moves, and you're like, it seems outdated. But when
Hmm.
you look at Pele's movement, at the way he scored goals, at the way he moves with the ball, if he was young during this day and age, he would be as good as he was back
Yeah.
then. So he was so advanced for his era
Hmm.
that he's today's era in a way. So I don't know. It's tough to see maybe the greatest players that ever played the game go. But hopefully we'll see very talented players, play the game of football in the next
Hmm.
in our lifetime. Hopefully we will be able to see such greatness again. So let's move on with CF Montreal. A lot has happened
Yeah.
since our last episode
And
on this
I'm
page.
sorry because it's
Yeah.
my fault. We said we'd do an emergency episode, and the day they announced Lozada, I came down with everyone's favorite virus.
Oh,
And I was actually like sick. So I'm really sorry to everyone because I know it's sorry how did you like jump in there. I felt so bad though. So I'm really sorry.
yeah, I know. I wasn't really sure that you wanted to talk
I
about
don't
it.
care.
So okay, because I had COVID maybe 2 weeks earlier, and you know what? We didn't see each other during those 2 weeks. So
No,
I
no,
mean,
it's not that
I'm
I got
not
it
the
from you.
culprit.
No, no. I'll
Yeah,
never know.
but it's okay. People I think had enough coverage. Covering the Losada's
Yeah.
nomination, so we'll be able to cover it today. So as I said, a lot have happened, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lot more in the next coming weeks. With training camp starting tomorrow. So let's start about all the subjects. I'm going to try to go chronologically, but I can't promise that I'll be 100%
No, that's
accurate,
fine.
so bear with me. So first of all, that was the calendar of the season that was released by the MLS, with CF Montreal playing its first game with its brand new logo on February 25th in Fort Lauderdale against Inter Miami, before traveling to Austin and then to Nashville, and then hosting its first game at the Big O against the Union, the Philadelphia
Mhm.
Union. Very interesting first game at home.
That
Elias,
was the home opener last year.
yeah, exactly. It was exactly the same. Exactly. Elias, what do you think about the first few games of the season?
I'm it's kind of bittersweet because I am grateful that not too many games are being played at the Big O compared to last year where they had the Champions League games, so they're kind of forced to come back to
Mm-hmm.
Montreal earlier. Um, but at the same time, if you look at 2 years ago when they had to play like a third of their season in Florida, it did
Mm-hmm.
not go as badly as people thought it would. Right? They ended up roughly at 500. Obviously, is not great if you're counting it as a home game, but given
Mm-hmm.
that they could not play in front of their own fans, and for what is essentially an away game or a neutral game, if you will, they got decent results. They ended up, getting averaging like a point and a half per game or just over a point and a half per game. So they struggled a bit on road trips last year, but they also became one of the best road teams ever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mixed bag. It really does depend on how quickly Hernan Losada gets this team to gel with a lot of missing pieces and now a lot of people that are going to be dependent on it even more than they were last
Mm-hmm.
year. I overall think that just the mentality hasn't really changed that much, and they approach road games with the same amount of confidence. So I think that they're going to be expecting to kind of carry that consistency from last year into this year, and I think they'll be looking to maybe not win all three games, at least get one win, and aim for getting points in all three. I think that would be very successful. But again, it's all dependent on how quickly Losada gets to like integrate himself into the club, into the squad, and how he gets people on board with whatever changes from the Nazi era that he's going to be implementing.
That's very interesting because we talked about Losada, but we didn't talk yet, but we know that Losada is the new head coach of CF Montreal. Eve, do you think it's a good thing that they play three games away from home in order to integrate, a Losada system? Is it going to be a better thing, or do you think it would have been better to have home games in order to
Well,
integrate themselves, for the
mm-hmm.
players to integrate themselves in the new system of Losada?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, home games, if those home games were going to be at the Big O, then I would just assume they get some road games out of the way early because the Big O is a friend to no player. I understand there is new turf down there now. So maybe there's hope, but I mean, even for fans, like it's not a fantastic venue to go to unless it's full to the brim. Which, sorry, Philadelphia, I respect your football, but it's definitely not going to be full for Philly. Um, that being said, as far as implementing Lozada's tactics and stuff, you know, a lot of what we saw from Montreal last year was they still played their game even when they were away. They didn't really adapt their style when they were playing away compared to when they were at home, which teams often do, play a little bit more conservatively on the road, just with the circumstances. That's under a different coach, so it's so hard to say. For that purpose, though, one thing that I could see being advantageous is having the time on the road. Obviously, the players are going to have preseason together, but they'll also have that experience of traveling together and spending a lot of time kind of almost in like their bubble, if you will. Like, I don't know if the plan is going to be to maybe not come back in between any of those games or whatnot. It's a little far out to decide that, but I think that could be advantageous as far as just from helping the team gel and helping him to get to know his players. But tactically speaking, I think you would probably want to start with home games so that you could have the best advantage on your side to get your tactics implemented and have your players at their most comfortable.
Interesting take. Very interesting take. I feel, again, I'm not, I don't really completely agree with you because I think that being away, the players have to gel. The players have no
Mm-hmm.
way to go, have nowhere to go. They don't need to go to see their family. They don't need to go back home or whatever. They're at the
Yeah.
hotel together. So I think it's easier for the players to integrate a new system while being away than being at home, because at home you have all your life that really catches up to you in a way. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We'll see what's going to happen. So in your opinion, Eve, uh, do you think that the club has to do something to stop this madness of having like 3, 4 away games at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of the season? And should it
Yeah.
be a priority to have functioning stadium to start home games?
Mm-hmm.
Starting the first or the second game of the season.
I mean, you have to also take into consideration just the general climate in February. It's not going to be necessarily a pleasant experience for supporters to go outdoors, for 2 hours. Think about it, Hady, when you and I were at BMO Field for the
Man.
World Cup qualifier last year.
Man.
You can't bring your little kids to that. Well, I mean, people did, but you know what I mean? Like, it's a lot to ask of fans. And I would love to have Stade Saputo ready to go earlier in the season for sure. But if we're going to continue with MLS starting their games in late February, I don't think it's particularly hopeful, I guess, that it would not maybe like translate to good ticket sales and stuff, because the weather could be iffy. And let's face it, there could just be snowstorms, period, that day, and they have to cancel.
Or like Patrick says, Elias, winterize the stadium if you can because of taxes, then build a new one, which is probably the best option. Do you think this is feasible?
I mean, that's a question for Joey Saputo and the city of Montreal, I think. We know that when Kevin Gilmore was president, we know when Kevin Gilmore was president that they had entered into some talks about it. They had done some studies and whatnot. So I know it's not like a lack of desire.
Elias, Roberto says retractable roof. Are we
on the Big
ever
O?
gonna see? Are we gonna see a retractable roof in Saputo one day? What do you think, Elias?
I think those two words are such trigger words to everybody in Montreal that I think that just the idea of bringing it forward is such a PR endeavor that I don't know that they would think whether or not it's worth it. I am interested because I haven't done much research on winterization of stadiums because, I mean, there are leagues in Europe that have snow rather consistently that play throughout the winter, right? So it's
in
not
Germany.
uncommon to see, especially in Germany, it's not uncommon to see games being played with snow on the ground, right? Again, Canada snow and Germany snow are not that comparable more often than not, but there has to be some kind of procedures in place for when there is snow on the ground. So I think that looking into that, maybe adapting it to the Canadian climate would be something that's worth it. I think a retractable roof is probably not the way to go. I think it's probably going to be just too expensive, and all in all, just a kind of a mess, as we've seen with the Olympic Stadium. And I could see it being a very long and expensive project that might not pay dividend, or I don't think that the club would see it be useful for just a handful of games a year, right?
Yeah.
Year round, then that's something you could talk about. But having a retractable roof kind of takes away from the ambiance, because I do love the open air ambiance of Stade Saputo. So if you have even retracted, that kind of roof element would kind of seem a bit odd to me, and kind of a weird compromise for at most maybe like 5 games. So I don't think that would be the
playoffs.
Playoffs are like a little bit earlier though. Yeah.
If snow gets, snow hasn't come that early in a while, but should make an appearance in like November, then
don't take 2022 as a reference, because we finished the season earlier in 2022 because of the World Cup. Don't forget that usually the MLS Cup is usually played mid-December, so it would have been maybe a month later. The playoffs would have started maybe a month later or 2-3 weeks later than it started in 2022. So yeah, but you're completely right. Is it something is it a good investment for the Saputo family? So that's the big question that they need to ask themselves for sure. But hopefully, I think for the fans, I think it could be a good thing to have the normal format during the calendar year, having an away game, then a home game, then an away game, then a home game, and not just waiting. The season started on the 25th of February, and the first game that I'm going to watch is going to be on the 25th of March or something like that. I don't remember what's the date of the first game in against Philadelphia. But yeah, so I think it would be nice to be directly implicated in the season as early as possible to get the hype going. But yeah, let's see if it's feasible in the next couple of years. Hopefully it is. Next subject.
The only silver lining I see having a road heavy schedule at the beginning of the year is the fact that you get more home games at the end of the year. And it's also a reason why,
Mm-hmm.
like, personally, I
True.
prefer hosting the second leg if it's a two-leg tie, right? Is because when you
Yeah.
need the result, right? Whatever happens in the first game, the second game is when you need a result and you have a
Mm-hmm.
home crowd. So if they make
Yeah.
if they're in a playoff push, or if they're fighting again, even for a home playoff game that they were last year, then having more games at home ends up being an advantage, right? I mean, Montreal turned out to be very reliable
Yeah.
on the road, but for 99% of the clubs, having more home games is usually a significant advantage. So
Yeah.
I
maybe that
agree.
could end up paying off towards the end of the season.
I agree, but the MLS have already made a bit of pressure on Joey Saputo, saying that this needs to be fixed, and they're not going to accept that for a lot longer. But what's funny about the MLS is that they can't put too much pressure because they have some bigger fish to fry with a certain New York City FC stadium. I think that's the main talk within the league. So you can't put pressure a lot of Montreal if you haven't put enough pressure on New York City FC first. So right now, I think the fact that New York City FC doesn't have a stadium plays in our favor. So hopefully we'll be able to find a solution when that day comes, if ever, if New York City
Mm.
FC ever has an adapted a soccer specific stadium in Manhattan. But that's another subject.
Okay.
Let's move on with
Yeah.
the next subject of CF Montreal. Eve is getting antsy.
Yes. I'm like,
A few days later, Aaron Herrera, 25-year-old, was acquired from Real Salt Lake for $350,000 in 2023 general allocation money, $150,000 in 2024 GAM, and a 2023 natural first round pick in the 2023 Super Draft, and of course a 2023 international roster spot. In 2022, Aaron Herrera has played 23 games as a right back and 5 as a center back or 23 games as a right back or right wing back and 5 as a center back. He can also play as a left back or left wing back, of course. He had his best career season in 2021, where he managed to collect 10 assists in MLS, and also got his first and only international cap with the US in a 7-0 win against Trinidad and Tobago, where he played about 78 minutes. Eve, with Herrera, have we found a perfect
mhm.
replacement for Alistair Johnston, in your opinion?
I mean, okay. Perfect, I think, is a strong word because Alistair Johnston was such a great fit with Montreal, and I think he was just so endearing to fans. But as far as the style of play goes, I do think that Aaron Herrera is going to be a good replacement. Certainly, I think it is a really good choice. Um, I think he is. If I recall correctly, Olivier Renard said that they actually looked and tried to sign him previously, but they weren't able to reach an agreement with RSL. I think though he is really attack minded, so that aligns with what we've become accustomed to from Montreal. Seems to be a hard worker. It seemed like he was really loved in Salt Lake as well. The fans did not react well to the news of his departure, and I feel bad for them, but whenever you see that they're upset, it usually means that the team is getting a good player. So, and hopefully a good character as well.
Elias, what do you think about the player?
Yeah, I mean, I think once you lose someone's like Alistair John, like obviously defensively, Alistair Johnson, his track record speaks for itself. He's one of the best on ball defenders in MLS, if not the best on ball defender in MLS last year. And his delivery was what really stood him apart from Zachary Bouyov, and that's what gave him the starting spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think losing that really did push them to maybe pursue her a little bit harder. And I think that what you have someone in her whose delivery is reliable, and not just in terms of the initial ball that that ends up, generating a goal or an assist or a chance, but also just in his link-up play, which is also very strong. And it's something that if you're going to be a team that enjoys possession and enjoys controlling the tempo of the game, your wide players have to be very reliable and not just, used to stretch the defense, but also to kind of get in behind, which is what Johnston did so well, which what Lapalainen did so well when he kind of got his form back, right? And so Brockyard is still a very reliable and very, consistent presence off the bench. He's had a number of really good games where he came in, with 20 or 30 minutes left, and his pace made a lot of tired or slower defenders pay. But I think that tandem again just adds that much more depth. And the fact that he is 2-footed kind of opens up so many more options. It kind of gives, people like Mathieu Choignard more time to play in the middle. It kind of maybe gives Lassi Lapalainen a bit more of a break because he would play 90 minutes basically every game. It does mean that, someone like Quizera will have to fight a bit harder for their spot, given the fact that he is not just like a one-footed player like Johnston was. And it'll be interesting to see how he's utilized. I think he'll be, at least at the start, he'll be utilized in a very similar way to Johnston. And then maybe once they kind of figure out the final points of his game, they can tweak it. But I think since his profile is so similar to Johnston, I think he's going to be utilized in that, like a piston. And then maybe someone like a play with the midfield, but it's mostly just, get him behind, stretch the defense, and then find that final ball in for Kyoto, Kamara, Toy, whoever's up there.
Exactly. And you know what? Being able to reach to collect 10 assists in the season shows that he's able to give good crosses and reach the right player in the box whenever it's needed. So I think that it's gonna be a very good addition for CF Montreal. So hopefully he'll be able to adapt to Montreal as quickly as possible, to the group and to the way Hernan Losada wants to play. And that's good transition, because on that same day, maybe a few hours later, Hernan Losada was announced as the head coach of CF Montreal. So he's a former attacking midfielder, an Argentine. He retired in 2018, and he previously coached in Belgium with Beerscott, where he managed to promote the club to the first division. He was also, in his first year in the first division in Belgium, he was nominated in the finalist as coach of the year. He didn't win it, but he was in the finalists during that year. He then joined DC United as a coach, where he had an average results, not really outstanding results, with 17 wins, 5 draws, and 19 losses, 1.37 points per game, and in a spell of a bit more than 12 months over 2 seasons. Elias, what was your first thoughts on this nomination?
I mean, when I first found out, I instantly looked up, because the first thing that pops out to your head was former DC United coach, and then you think about the disastrous year that they had last season, right? But as you look more into it, then you understand the nuance and the context, and you could see also how well they did 2 years ago, fighting for that playoff spot. And it's after the presentation where he got to speak to the press, and they kind of outlined their vision and their the reasoning behind going after someone like Losada. It makes a lot of sense, and it's understandable why they look for a young coach who's used to developing youth players and who kind of has a very strong link with Belgian football, like Olivier Renard does. And so I think that was a very common point where they both very much hammered home the idea that they want to bring a bit more of a European approach to the way the club is run. And so him being a very strong disciplinarian didn't really ring so well in DC, and that kind of caused a bit of an issue. But that's something that Renard actively appreciated, and that's something that he spoke about and he praised them on. So it'll be interesting to see just how much of that is brought in, and compared to the way Nasi approached things. Because again, all I could think about when Losada was talking about how he's a young coach who has made some mistakes and he's learned from these mistakes is just how much praise was heaped onto Wilfried Nancy at the end of the season, and how is this going to be different, and are people going to have some growing pains with him, right? Because Nasi was not necessarily universally loved amongst the squad, right? He's very single-minded, and he likes things just so. So when people got along with him, it was spectacular. But some players, notoriously Anthony Jackson Hamel, where it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, and then stuff kind of spiraled out of control, right? So Hernan Losada sounds like a similar type of mentality where he likes things done just so, and he likes to be very involved
Mm-hmm.
in every aspect of his squad. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly he kind of connects with them, and if he does. But I think from an on-field product, he's very similar to Nalsi. And they talked about how they love attacking football, they like to control the ball, they like to score goals, they like to play an attractive brand, right? So all that stuff is very reminiscent of what I hear from Wilfried and what I hear from Olivier Renard. So you could tell that that was the main selling point to bring him on board. And I think that there's growing pains with any coach,
Mm-hmm.
but this is clearly an investment in the future, and I hope he does get this kind of benefit of the doubt and some leeway, especially if this season doesn't get off to that good of a start, that he can at least have time to put something together instead of finding himself under pressure halfway through the year if they don't do that well.
There's a couple of comments, first of all, from Patrick White saying, from what we hear, Lozada's system won't be much different. Maybe a bit of a press, but that sounds like the only difference. A bit more of a press, but that sounds
Mm-hmm.
like the only difference. That's what we heard. That's what
Yeah.
we heard from the coach, from everybody around the club. In DC also, I made a few, I asked around a bit to a few of our
Mm-hmm.
colleagues, and that's exactly what I heard too. I think the main difference now between what we've known from CF Montreal and what we're seeing right now is that communication skills have improved a lot. So, when you see the first conference, the press conference of Hernan Lozada and with Olivier Renard and Gabriel Gervais, the way that it's approached, the way that those higher ups answer questions, it's all calculated, and it's
Mm-hmm.
mostly like it seems that like they know the questions in advance in a way, and I know that they don't because I'm usually in the press room. So I think that's the biggest difference. Now I'm gonna give my take. I'm a bit skeptical on Hernan Lozada. I'm not really sure that he's the right fit, but I've been proved wrong quite a few times. So hopefully I'm wrong this time. The reason behind it is that I think that nowadays having a coach that's a bit stiffer, from what I understand, is not the way to go. Now, sometimes it works. I know in Marseille right now it's working because the coach is a bit stiffer. But usually it doesn't really fit with the players of 2023. Eve, do you think he's the right fit, or are you a bit skeptical there?
I'm a bit skeptical as well, Hattie. Yeah. And I do feel bad. I also I talked to some friends in DC myself, because of course I did watch some DC soccer while he was at the helm, and I know that they had a lot of challenges with their roster as well during the time that he was there. So I did try to take it with a grain of salt, but unfortunately, my most recent memory is that the soccer I watched was it was not pleasant to watch at all. It was bad. I don't know how else to say it. I'm sorry. And as well, of course, we did hear some potentially troubling player management stories, I guess. And I think those were effectively addressed in the press conference. I think it was appropriate that they be questioned for sure. And I think it was. I think he did answer. He probably did anticipate that one coming. I'm willing to bet if anyone at the club was using their online devices that day, they probably knew that the fans were concerned about that. But like you said, Hattie, I agree that kind of like that level of rigidity. It doesn't seem to be kind of what modern, modern players. And I mean, I think as well, just as a society as a whole, we've really, like when we think about, health and well-being and mental health, and, not taking on too much, like I think, classic style was just so much work hard, rigidity, high performance, but now it's a lot more of like a holistic approach, I think. So I agree with you that it could be a concern if he's not willing to be flexible, for players. And yeah, we'll see.
I think the coach needs to find the right balance
Oh, for sure.
between the rigidity. You can't be too cool either, right? So you need to find the right balance between the two. I think Wilfried Nancy found that sweet spot between the two approaches, and I think that's what Hernan Lozada is looking for right now. I don't think he found it in DC. I think he needs to find it in Montreal, and hopefully he'll be able to do it. We have a good question from Roberto here. Who will be the first player to clash with the new coach? So which one of you wants to answer?
Let me think. I'm gonna think for a minute.
Okay, Gail has answered Kyoto. Sometimes people learn a lot from second chances.
No, I don't think she's answering his question. I think she means like I know. Okay, sorry, I was like,
you know what? When I read his name, I'm like, that's one of the names that popped up in my mind, answering Roberto's question. But then I read the rest of the comment, and he did change a lot, Kyoto. So hopefully we'll see the same with Losada. But let's go back to Roberto's question.
Yeah.
I say Kyoto. I think there's going to be a clash between Kyoto and Losada. Just the fact that they speak Spanish, both of them, I can see them in training yell at each other in Spanish.
That's a good point. And we know that Kyoto is a fiery personality to begin with.
I think it's tough to. I think Kyoto having maybe like a disagreement with the coach is not something that would be unexpected. But I think that if you call it a clash, I think it implies there's like a consistent disagreement to the point where there's kind of this mistrust built. And I do think that like the comment said, Kyoto's improved on that front. But in terms of like genuinely getting to the point where there's like bad blood, would be just in the change in the system. And I do feel like you said, it's going to be a more high tempo and high pressing team. And I do feel like if certain attackers aren't on board with that, it could lead to some pretty heated discussions, especially if Losada isn't willing to kind of sit down and talk it out and just be like, it's my way or the highway. Maybe some of the older strikers, maybe some of the strikers that are used to being target man, or used to, I will split the field in half and direct the ball that way, and then I'm done.
You're talking about the target man. The only target man that we have in the team is Kai Kamara, and I don't think Kai Kamara he can argue with someone. I don't think it's.
To be fair, there's a lot of different attackers that can play as target man, right? Like Mason does like to drop deep, and Kamara did drop deep a lot, and he played wide a lot last year too.
True.
Montreal does have a lot of attackers with a bigger with just a bigger frame that can play as target man, right? And the way he liked to press was very much guided everybody to the flank, and then you kind of trap them in there. So it's a lot more methodical. So I think that if people aren't too enthusiastic about switching that up, it could lead to maybe not the best reaction. So, but again, like you said, right, communication has to improve, and communication has improved maybe in the front office, but we'll have to wait and see how communication improves from the front office to the actual players. Because at the end of the day, you can tell people to do stuff, but they have to do it on the field, and you have to develop a good relationship.
I love the suggestions of Tate saying Miljevic. You know what? That's the second player that I had in mind. But you guys didn't say anything. Didn't even mention a name yet, guys. Come on.
Well, I'll give you a name. I was thinking about it.
Who?
I could see it actually being like a veteran player, because especially Lozada is a young and relatively inexperienced coach. So I could see, players who have kind of been around the block a time or two. maybe being a little more apt to stand up to him. So I could actually see a player like, let's say, for example, and obviously theoretically,
Yeah, of
Lazada
course.
is still too rigid, and maybe it's having a negative impact on the squad. I could see somebody like a Victor Wanyama telling him, like, no,
Oh,
this is not going to work.
interesting.
I could see him stick. No, but he would absolutely stick up for his teammates.
Interesting. Interesting.
He's got captain's qualities in him. He's played as captain for the team many times. So I could see him standing up on behalf of his teammates.
Of course, guys, we're having fun with this discussion.
Yeah,
We love all the players. We're not saying
very
that
much.
they're fiery or whatever it is. It's just a discussion just for fun and
And
pleasure.
fiery can be a good thing too. Anyway.
Exactly. I agree. I agree. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic. CF Montreal also had the super draft, where the club acquired 3 players during the draft with Milo Garvanyan, Usman Jabang, and Nick Christopherson. Um, of course, I don't know them. The only thing that I know is that Christopherson is a Canadian goalkeeper. So that's pretty good.
A
I'm
product
always
of
happy.
TFC's academy.
Exactly. I'm always happy to see Canadians join the team. That's always a good thing. Of course, the challenge with the Super Draft is that the players have that training camp to prove themselves to earn a contract. As of right now, these players are not under contract with CF Montreal. I'm do you have any info on those players? Have you heard something on those players? Because I haven't heard much. Anyone?
I
I
mean,
haven't
I
heard much. I
did.
am interested to see how they perform. I am interested to see,
Yeah.
how they do, because there aren't any attackers, right? It's a midfielder, it's a defender, and it's a goalkeeper, right?
Yeah.
So Jabang is a very offensive minded. I believe he plays wing back. He played wing back in college. He got some like 4 or 5 goals, if I remember correctly. So he's not afraid to get forward, and obviously, it'll be interesting to see, can he be adaptable, because again, you look at Montreal's lineup and Montreal's squad depth, and they have 4 consistently used and more or less reliable wing backs. And if you include Mathieu Choignard, who can also play in that position, you have 5. So I think they're either going to look at him to turn into either an attacker, or maybe see how good he is defensively to improve maybe the depth at center back, because in terms of fullbacks, that job is pretty much filled and then some. As for the other 2, I haven't heard much. Haven't had the chance to look into them all that much either, but I did take particular interest in Usman Jabang, because I'm also a defender by trade. So when Montreal picks up a new defender, I like to find out what they're about. I like to see what's going on. And I was impressed with him, but at the end of the day, unless he turns into an incredible talent, and again, there are always gems in the super draft, and you really do never know what can happen. At that position, they're not looking for any kind of additional depth. So it'll be interesting to see how he's utilized.
Yeah, unless somebody could be potentially on the move, obviously, then there may be room for extra depth, and maybe there's something going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of. But I know, we haven't heard any rumors about any of our fullbacks or our wingbacks departing. Knock on wood. No more. I can take no more.
I don't think we'll see any more players leaving unless they're surplus to requirements. So right now it doesn't seem that any player is not welcome in Montreal. So I don't think we'll see any movement. But you never know, right? Sometimes at the end of the January window in Europe, some club panic a bit. They need a central defender. They don't know where to look anymore. You know what? Kamal Miller was good. Let's try and bid for him. So we'll see if the offer is good enough, and if Olivier Renard is able to find a replacement very soon. He said it quite a few times that he will not hesitate in accepting an offer if it's what someone like Kamal Miller or Joel Waterman or whatever it is is interested in. So So we'll see. We'll see if it's going to happen. But as of today, I don't think we'll see any
No.
more players leaving. I would be very, very surprised.
Yeah.
Now on January 2nd, so in the new year, just before the new year, sorry, George Campbell signed a new 3-year contract with the club. He was acquired, and as we said on December 18th, we had our friend from Bart from Atlanta that came and talked to us about George Campbell. So he signed a new 3-year contract with the club. Elias, we never really talked about George Campbell with you. What are your thoughts on this player, and do you think it's a good thing that he signed an extension?
Well, I mean, I think the extension is maybe a show of good faith. Given that they play with three central defenders, I think that it's good to have more depth at that position, and I think that's what he'll provide. There were heat maps that showed where he played in Atlanta, and it shows that he is very movable across, either 2 or 3 center backs. So I think that he really will be a plug and play type defender where if a defender is suspended or injured, or you're just going through the rotation of the squad, he's someone that can play in the middle because he's very good with the ball. He's someone that's athletic, so he's not going to be caught out if he plays on an outside defender who can back up, the wing backs. I think it's just a good all-around depth move. And obviously he's young and he's someone that has a very a relatively high ceiling, which means that it fits into the Projet Montreal archetype for their central defense. I think that there's not much downside based on what we've seen from him, and I think it's just an all-around good move made to shore up the defense, which is it has been solid last year, but it has also been prone to inconsistencies. So I think having some fresh blood and having some fresh legs in there as well could help, especially when you get bogged down into 4 games in 2 weeks or 5 or 6 games in less than a month, and you could sort of rotate the squad without being worried about overusage, especially if someone like Hady has some miles on him.
Yeah, and we also have Gold Cup to juggle with this year, so we can certainly expect Kamal Miller to be gone, potentially Joel Waterman as well, depending on where John Herdman decides to select his players from. So there's definitely, I could see lots of opportunity arising for him. Plus, we've got that. Oh my gosh, what's that competition called? The one with the Mexican league. Oh my gosh, what's it called?
The Leagues Cup.
Yeah, we also have to juggle that this year as well. Although the league is
that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm skeptical.
Really interesting.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see different teams. But anyway, we had this discussion already for sure. But,
I know, but I don't know. I'm excited this year about this new competition.
I don't feel it feels just like they're using us for warm up practice for this season.
We'll see.
We'll see how it goes. That's just my feeling, and I'm the cynical one on this podcast anyway.
But the 3-year contract,
I like it.
Think it's were you surprised?
No, honestly, no. Because it's really similar to what they did when they signed Alistair Johnston last year. They did an extension right away as well. And let's face it wound up working out well for Montreal because sure enough, another club came knocking. And then, of course, Montreal is able to extract more money if they have the player under contract for longer. So like Elias said there, it's very much in their business model. Make sure that you have your young, high ceiling players under contract. So that way, when they do, as expected, generate interest, you're able to reap the benefits to the highest level possible.
Exactly. Now, of course, CF Montreal lost their head coach with Wilfried Nancy, but also lost a lot of the staff with Ampadu leaving, with Guégan leaving, and Max Chalier leaving. So there was quite a few holes to fill in that coaching staff, and they did so. They added a few names to that staff on January 2nd with confirming, first of all, Laurent Simon as an assistant manager and adding Sébastien Seri as another assistant manager, acquiring also fitness coach Barthélemy Delacroix, assistant fitness coach with Stefano Pasquali that comes back, of course, with CF Montreal that was here last year. And, of course, confirming goalkeeper coach with Romuald Payser. Losada mentioned that it is essential to have colleagues with different knowledge bases and skill sets. Do you agree with that statement, Eve?
Absolutely, 100%. And I think it applies in just about any job that you have. Obviously, in this particular domain where it's competitive and there's so many different ways that a football game can be approached, and there's so many different personalities to manage as well. Yeah, I believe it's critical to have different ideas, different visions, and just as long as everybody gets along and is able to interchange their ideas, then I 100% agree with what he said.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's a good way of thinking. Of course, now
Hmm.
let's see what they can bring to the table. Of course, I don't know them. The only one that I know a bit is Delacroix, just because, as you guys know, I'm a big League One follower.
Hmm.
So I do follow League One very very closely. Delacroix is a name that's very respected in France. I'm not going to say he's one of the best, because no, he's not. He was involved with Stade de Reims. Uh, he's known, so he's a good addition, I think, for CF Montreal. Let's see if he adapts very quickly. We've seen so many Europeans that come here and don't really like it, so hopefully Delacroix, it will be different for him. For you, Elias, do you think CF Montreal needs more people in their coaching staff, or do you think having this many people is quite enough to have a successful year in 2023?
I mean, I definitely think there's enough people there. I think they have enough bodies on the staff, right? I think if you go into the season, you start noticing that there's gaps or areas that need improvement that the certain staff members are not experts in, or there can be certain parts of the staff that can be improved, then that's a conversation for another time. But in terms of having a full staff, I think that they're there.
Hmm.
I think that it looks like they have all their bases covered from what I can tell, and I think that the only way they would need to change is if very specific issues emerge that
Yeah.
need very specific, um like I don't want to sound like Liam Neeson, but like a very specific set of skills, right?
Yeah.
Then you can kind of bring up that discussion, but that's very much a cross that bridge if they get to a situation. So I don't think that that's on the radar right now. I think they would be happy with the people they've got, and I think once they found out that Nasi was leaving, they started probably taking into account who would be gone, who would need replacing. I think they've been
Hmm.
working at it for some time. I'd be surprised if this was like a last minute thing. So I think that everything they have their ducks in order, and I think that I wouldn't be
You know
looking at too
what?
many different staff.
I think there's one spot to fill still. The departure of Max Chalier is something that wasn't addressed, in my opinion. So we have
Hmm.
nobody right now at video analysis, and we
Yeah.
know how important it is nowadays. In word football, video analysis has improved so much. Analytics is so important. Now they do have. I'm not sure if they haven't announced anything about Luan Schlicht, if he's still with the staff. So I'm not sure if he's left, he's still here or not. But he's pretty new, right? He was only added last year. He's very young. He's I think about 19. So is it enough, or does he need someone a bit more experienced in analytics, in video analysis, and everything? I think that's something, unless we see a SETI or a Delacroix really filling that spot in a way,
Hmm.
having that experience to deal with those charges, then I think then it will be perfect. But as of today, I don't see anyone really filling that spot for Max Chalier. That's someone that was very, very, very important in 2022. I don't know if you have
Yeah.
anything more to add.
No, I agree. That's kind of the one thing that stuck out in my head was was that specific role. So I'm glad that you said it because I was gonna say it if you hadn't.
Perfect, perfect. So, lastly, the club announced on Friday, so just 2 days ago, that Victor Wanyama was back for a couple of years. Um, it's very funny because he announced himself that he was leaving the club. I think last year around October, like before the playoffs, or
Yeah.
maybe September, he announced that he will not be back, and then he did a Rudy, he did a
Hmm.
Camacho, and he came back on his word and signed a new contract for a couple of seasons. Most comments I've read were very, very positive, but some were negative. Bale asked us a question,
Yes.
and if you can put it on the
It's
screen,
coming.
Eve, that would be perfect. Seriously, give me 3 reasons to waste a DP place on Victor Wanyama. Who wants to answer that first?
I mean, I saw that before, you sent it to us, and we said we're gonna talk about on the show, and it kind of raised an eyebrow because, I mean, stats alone, he obviously was not impressive because he didn't score a bunch of goals or create a bunch of assists, but he is the metronome of that team at the end of the day.
Hmm.
He
Hmm.
is the person that controls the tempo. He pulls all the strings, and he understands when to speed up play, when to slow it down, when to go backwards or sideways, right?
Hmm.
His knowledge of the game is by far the best on the team, which is obviously what you expect from him, but it's just his technical quality as well that
Yeah.
gets them out of so many difficult positions, and that honestly they would not be able to play that style without him. Right? There's other
Agree.
people that are really good on the ball. There's other people that see the game well, but someone sit that deep in front of the back three and lets the wing backs get upfield, lets the other pivot or the other two midfielders drift a bit further forward and space out the game that much. There's nobody else on the team that does it. So yes, you
Mhm.
absolutely do waste. Don't waste. You do use a DP designation on that because, or else you have to completely rework the way you approach the game. And it showed a couple times where he wasn't playing, and they would have to resort to either long balls or they would just seem like they could only go forward and run into a wall and then back up 2 steps and try again. So they didn't
Mhm.
have that person to just, with all that experience, to just say, relax, we're just going to try this and then we'll go back. And then they would find success again. Right. So, I mean, I think that's someone who maybe doesn't want to, someone who maybe plays a bit too much FIFA and sees somebody with Wanyama who's not that quick in the midfield and goes, I don't want him on my team. But,
Mhm.
all you have to do is watch one half of Montreal playing at their best, and you'll notice that Victor Wanyama is one of the biggest reasons why they're playing at their best.
Yeah.
Eve, do you have 3 reasons to waste
That.
ADB plays on him?
For me, obviously a lot of what Elias said, he is definitely the most talented player on that team. It is like a relatively thankless looking position in that it isn't going to reap the goals and assist glory for sure. Um, for me, it's like Holy Gale says, you don't realize really how important he is to the team until he's not there. And then you realize exactly what he is. He is the pulse of the team, as Wanyama goes, so the team goes, basically. He's so important in linking the defense and the attack. He has that. He's seen it all as well. He's seen so much playing at the highest levels in Europe. So he has all of that experience that he's able to impart on other players. And like a good leader doesn't necessarily have to be a DP for sure. But when you have somebody who's played at those levels, then that is, I think, great wisdom that he can share with his younger teammates, of whom there are quite a few in the Montreal philosophy. And as well, he is just, I think, a good character as well. I mean, we had him on the podcast and he was so nice.
Yeah.
So he's a good character. And again, you don't have to be a DP. I totally get it. You don't have to be a DP to represent well. But all the same, he's not somebody who's going to go like swanning about in his Lamborghini, on the weekend. He, he's just a generally humble, down to earth, nice human. So I don't know if those are true reasons to quote unquote waste a DP spot, but there are reasons why I think having Victor Wanyama back is great news.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to give you three reasons just like that. First of all, I haven't seen, and I think I don't know if how much you know about me knowing MLS, but I've seen all the teams play for maybe 5 years now, covering the league altogether, and I haven't seen a midfielder that's able to keep the ball under any challenges as better than Victor Wanyama. Sometimes he's pressed by two defenders, three defenders, and he's still able to make the right pass, to be able to turn around and make a positive play for the club. And I think that's where he's very important. The ability to keep the ball, and make a positive play with it. That's something that's very important when you play possession football and when you're confronted to a high press. And that's why you need Victor Wanyama. So that's one of the reasons. Second reason, I think you both said it, international experience. When I say international experience, it's not only at the international level, like with the national teams, but also being able to be at a very good level in Europe and also in MLS. He's not someone that doesn't know MLS, doesn't know the what's required in MLS. He's been here for 3 years. He's already adapted to the North American game. And we know that it's hard to adapt to the North American game with all the traveling that happens. And usually a lot of Europeans, when they come, are players that are used to play in Europe, when they come in MLS, they're a bit stunned by how much traveling there is.
And it used to be done on economy, or not, I don't know if it was actually economy. It used to be done on like normal planes.
Exactly. So I think we still have the charter planes now. So that's really good. So that's also something that's positive. So second thing, and the third thing, and I think that's something that we don't really talk a lot talk about. So you mentioned his mentality, Eve, in a dressing room. But when you have so many fiery players, so many players that have very big egos in a dressing room, you need that silent type, that player that's here to listen and that has that experience, that is respected in the locker room. And that's what Victor Wanyama brings to the table. When you have the Kyotos, the Mason Toys, before we had Mihailovic, Joaquin Torres, they're players that are going to talk a lot, are very outspoken, and Victor Wanyama is the silent type of leader. He's the kind of leader that's going to listen, and then whenever he's asked, give some advice. And I think that's very important nowadays in today's game, when you have those players, those young players, because we're gonna see some young players that are so talented but so confident that they don't know their limits a bit. So having an experienced player, really manage them in a way, or give them some tips. You know what? Calm down. Just take time to calm down. Look at me. I'm calm, so be calm. And that's something very important. So now a DP contract is important for that kind of players, because it's not the kind of players that at 31 come to MLS. He's only 31, man. 31 or 32, I think now. So, 31. He's going to be 32 in June. So he's the kind of player that usually comes in MLS at 33 or 34. He's already been here for 3 years. So yes, for me, he deserves that DP tag. So I hope we answered your question, Sibel. I hope that maybe we convinced you a bit about the positivity behind this signing. But we have also another question regarding Victor Wanyama with Mathieu.
From Mathieu.
Exactly. So Mathieu Mashibuzuk, a loyal listener of the show, with Wanyama eligible to play for national team again, how would you manage his season? Does he play only in MLS? Who wants to answer first?
That's an interesting question. He already did some form of load management during the season, right? It wasn't too prominent, but he did sometimes if there were multiple back-to-back back-to-back games, he would rest one of them, and kind of let Samuel Piet take the charge of playing in that sixth role. I feel like there's going to be more of that. Again, there's no World Cup qualifiers, this year or next year. So I think that in terms of international duty, it'll be mostly friendlies. That's not a concern I have in terms of him managing. He's been doing it, pretty much since he got to Montreal. He's been, making sure that he's ready for the bigger games. He's he sat out some games at a time if need be. So I think that'll be more of the same. I'm generally apprehensive of international breaks, just as someone who's seen so many clubs ravaged by injuries. I'm a Barcelona fan and CF Montreal, and both teams just have the most rotten luck when it comes to international breaks. So aside from Messi winning the World Cup, the best thing about the World Cup was that no Barcelona players got injured. That was the second best thing for me. So I think that he'll have to understand that maybe he'll have a conversation with Olivier Renard and Hernan Losada and break down a timetable or like a schedule for him to find those rest days. But I don't think that's much of a concern for him.
You know what?
Yeah.
Let's speculate a bit. Okay, I'm speculating. Okay, we know that Victor Wanyama took retired internationally last year.
Yeah.
And now he came back on his word, saying, you know what, I'm back. I'm available again with Kenya. Now we do understand that there was a problem with the federation, and stuff like that. But I have a feeling there's more behind it. Did he negotiate this in his contract, saying, you know what, I accept to be paid less, but you know what, I'll be available for international breaks again. I think that's a question that could be asked at one point to Victor Wanyama. So hopefully we will be able to do so, either me or Elias in the next media availability. Eve, you had something to say?
No, I don't think Montreal, though, has ever held back players from going on international duty.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't think so either. But, it's tiring to go.
Oh, no, and I can,
North America
the travel
to
is
Africa,
grueling.
So,
yeah. No, it definitely sucks.
So
I agree.
maybe he said, you know what? Whenever I have an international break, I'm going
like
to
a
Kenya
rest
and I'm
game
staying.
beforehand.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I need a rest game or whatever it is, or something like that.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
In that way, not
okay, yeah, no,
not that. Yeah. Not
Okay,
that,
sorry.
but I understand that you're right to think that way. It's that's not what I meant though.
Okay,
what
cool.
I meant is maybe he negotiated a deal to rest a bit more when he comes back for international breaks. That's what.
Okay, understood. Got you.
So
I was really concerned.
no, but that's I think very interesting. I'm very very curious to know his contract, and if he has the same salary. I think he had about $3 million last year. So I don't know if he was able to be, he was able to sign such a big contract with CF Montreal. So that I think that's going to be very interesting too. But yeah, how are we going to manage this? I think we have no choice. If he's going to Kenya and back, we need to rest him. I don't think he'd be able to come back within 3 days and play another game in North America. I don't think it's feasible at 31. I think we will have to rest him for a game or two before he's back on the pitch. So I don't think we'll see a Victor Wanyama that's going to play like last year. He played 32 games in MLS. I think in a regular season, 32 games. I don't think we'll see him play as many games next year in 2023. So, and that's a good thing. I see also in order to have more rotation and maybe to give some playing time to someone like Rida Zahir, because what do I always say? Play the youth. Exactly. So
there also won't be Champions League to watch. So
yeah,
but you have Leagues Cup. But you have Leagues Cup.
I still don't know what's going on with that. If you ask me to explain,
it's happening.
in the League's Cup, I could not.
Oh, God love
I
him.
don't
Oh,
understand. Like, I
yeah.
understand the idea behind it, but if you ask me to explain how the tournament works or how the cup works, forget about it. I still
Yeah,
Listen
no.
to
I read it.
listen to the episode of The Ball is Round number. I don't remember which number it was, but we explained everything. So no, but it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. I think we'll see. We'll see. Um, let's move on. The camp starts tomorrow on Monday, and the club announced the staff, the players that are going to participate in the camp. So goalkeepers Logan Ketterer and Jonathan Sirois, defenders Zachary Bogia, Rudy Camacho, George Campbell, and Aaron Herrera, midfielders Jean-Niel Assi, Mathieu Chouanière, Ahmed Hamdi, Georgia Quizera, Lassie Lapalainen, Matko Miljevic, Sean Rea, Nathan Saliba, Joaquin Torres, Victor Wanyama, and Rida Zuhir, as well as forward Kai Kamara, Sunusi Ibrahim, Romel Kyoto, and Mason Toy. 5 CF Montreal Academy player with Jeffrey Alphonse, Gabriel Antinoro, Louis Cloutier, Malik Daouda, and Mathis Hébert have also been invited to participate in the first team camp. And of course, the 3 draft picks with Garvanian, Jabang, and Christopherson that we talked about a bit earlier will be there. Now, Canadians that have participated in the World Cup have been granted, of course, additional time off, with Pentemis, Kamal Miller, and Joel Waterman returning on January 13th, and Samuel Piet having a bigger break until January 16th. And lastly, central defender Robert Torkelson will be absent for the start of preseason, joining the team on January 13th. He played today and was a starter with Iceland against Estonia. A score, he played 78 minutes with a final score of 1-1 for Robert Torkelson. What do you have to say about all that? There's so many topics, so many things that we have to talk about. When you look at that list, Eve, what do you think about that list?
It doesn't feel complete to me.
Interesting.
That was my very thought. I was like, I'm nonplussed. It feels like there's at least one player still missing. Obviously, MLS teams can have 30 players on their roster, and of course, we certainly don't expect all of the academy players to sign, and potentially not even all of the draft players either. So obviously, there's still a lot of room for Montreal to make room to its squad, and I do feel like this is not a complete squad that's going to be undergoing preseason. That was my thought. Sorry,
That's it.
I am who I am.
Elias?
No, I mean, I think Eve has a good point where if they're planning to play the way they do, where they control the ball and they, pack the midfield does look a little bit thin, right? I mean, you did
Yeah.
lose Alistair Johnston, who, when he pushes up, is a part of the midfield. You lost Ismail Kone, you lost Georgi Mihailovic. Those are big pieces, and those are huge shoes to fill, right? So while they may have a player for that role, I think they're still lacking in terms of filling that position meaningfully. Again, we talked about Herrera filling the Johnston void, and that will be done well. But in terms of the middle of the field, that connection between Romel Kyoto and Georgi Mihailovic, or Mihailovic and any of the attackers really, was, invaluable. And he made life so much easier for the attackers by occupying that space and finding those gaps. And you saw a lot of times, especially when he was hurt or where he was coming back from injury and wasn't 100% yet, where they tried different people in his spot, and it worked sometimes, right? You had Miljevic tried in there, you had Chouanière that tried a little bit there, you had Kone obviously there, but he's gone now. So I still think, like you said, that midfield looks a little bit thin. I still think they need, to either switch up the way that they're going to approach their possession in the midfield, especially when they get into the final third and are trying to create chances by playing through the middle, because it's looking a little bit uncreative. I don't want to sound too cross. It does look like they have that talent down the wing, and they do have the talent to finish in the box, but they don't have that someone to sit at the top of the box and kind of ease the way down the middle and kind of take some of the load off the wide players. So it looks to be a team that will be very present in terms of generating that space on the wings and then crossing the ball in, which I mean is not a bad thing. If they want to play that possession style, you have to have a threat in the middle that can create, beat a man. And there have been rumors of them bringing, some different attacking midfielders, and I do think that that's a step in the right direction. But again, the George Mihailovic sized hole in their midfield is noticeable.
Wow. Okay, I was expecting a lot more things a lot more comments from you guys. So I'm going to start because I have quite a few comments. So first of all, where's Ofor?
He's on loan. He's still on loan until June.
No, until the 31st of January.
I'm pretty sure it's June.
31st of January.
He was in the lineup today. He was on the bench today.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that when I looked about the forward at the forward line, I counted Ofor as being one of our strikers. I think that right now with those 4 strikers, it all depends on Losada's system. Is he going to play a 3-5-2? If he plays a 3-5-2, I think we're also a bit thin up front because you only have Kamara that we know is a certain age. I hope that he can repeat what he did last year. We have Kyoto. We know that he's very often injured. We have Mason Toy. We know that he's very often injured. And then you have Sunusi. That's very, that's not unfortunately a starter. The caliber of a starter. So I think we're a bit thin up front. So that's the first thing. We have 3 roster spots available. I think senior roster spots available still. So I think we need depth up front. We also need a midfielder, as you guys said. So I'm not going to repeat all that. So we need a creative midfielder. I completely agree. If you play as 3-4-3, maybe we need a wide midfielder that can play that role. If we play a 3-5-2, then maybe an attacking central attacking midfielder. That's going to be very interesting. So that's the second thing. Third of all, I think it's very interesting to see Robert Torkelson play with the A team of Iceland. I think that's very, very, very interesting. And we haven't talked enough about it. Him having valuable minutes with Iceland is very important for CF Montreal because he's getting quality minutes at a very good level, international level. Yes, you're going to tell me, yes, it's against Estonia, but Estonia is not an easy opponent. Don't think that it's not the Faroe Islands or Gibraltar. It's a good team, Estonia. So it's that's going to be very interesting also. And I said it a bit when I talked about the squad that's available. Why is Samuel Piet coming on the 16th? Maybe he was given an extra 3 days off, but I think that's a bit weird. So yeah, I think that's all the comments that I have to say about this squad. I think it's missing a couple of players.
Yeah.
Yes, Eve.
I just wanted to say I was right about the 04 loan. He is.
You're always right, Eve. You're always right. You've been like stressed for like 10 minutes. Like,
I know. I've been like, I know something. I know. I'm so sorry. Imagine having to work with me because I'm just the same at work. No, he is in fact on loan, but Montreal is allowed to terminate the loan if the Belgian side does not sign him as of January 31st. So for all intents and purposes, he's staying there unless Montreal changes their minds. Which, like you said, maybe they should consider doing, given that there seems to be a lack of depth up front.
Exactly. So maybe if Montreal is not able to sign anyone, maybe we'll see Ofor coming back with CF Montreal at the end of January. That's a possibility. So let's wait and see. That could be very interesting. But I think, you have those 2 spots that are very important. And we have Simple Guy's question.
Yeah,
if we can pull it up, that will be very interesting. Can we expect a competitive season if no other additions are made to CF Montreal? I know they said more signatures are coming.
Oops.
But what if this is it? I am going to start with Eve because you already started answering.
I was
And
like,
go ahead, Eve.
no, for me, the squad is not complete enough to be competitive. It's basically in the spinal column of the pitch that I think we've really identified Montreal's lacking the most, and that's to me the worst spots for you to lack down that central line of the pitch. So no, to me, the squad isn't likely to be certainly not competing for second in the East or even potentially first, as they nearly did last year. Um, we do. There are a lot of quality players, but let's face it, a lot of these quality players are returning a year older, especially up top. Looking at those players, plus of course we have so many question marks with Mason Toy. And is Kyoto going to, what kind of fitness level is Kyoto going to have this year? Is he going to suffer his injuries, or is he going to be just as effective as last year and stay healthy all year? And then we talked about the midfield issue and how are we going to get the ball into whomever's up top attacking. So for me, no, Montreal might not concede a ton of goals because I think they are pretty well set along the back line. But for scoring goals, I would be a little concerned.
Elias, anything to that?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much very concisely put. I think the only way Montreal stays competitive is if Romel Kyoto plays the way he played for that 1 month when Mihailovic was injured, right? Because he was playing at an MVP level for a month when he was basically a one-man wrecking crew, right?
Yeah.
He would take games and he would basically flip them on his head by himself, right? The one that I remember the most was against Red Bulls in New Jersey when he just ran in a straight line and ended up scoring and they won the game, right? So it's moments like that he managed to string together multiple moments like that when Mihailovic was injured, and it kind of did ease the burden of not having Mihailovic, but that's over the course of a month, right? Like you said, Romel is someone who is relatively injury prone. He doesn't play a full 90 anymore. He very rarely plays a full 90 minutes. And if you're going to be competitive and that is your main crutch to lean on offensively, if he can't play 90 minutes, then he'll either have to score like a hat trick in an hour and then he can come off with a secure lead, or you're going to have an issue. So I think he's going to have his best season yet in Montreal if they want to be competitive. I think even if they do, address some of the issues in the midfield and add some depth up top, he's still going to have to be their best player. He's still going to have to be their most effective player. I think him and Wanyama will probably be the two most relied upon people. But I think that if Montreal were to be top 2 in the East again, he'll have to have an MVP caliber season. With the squad they have now, have to have yeah.
You know what? I don't think that Renard is crazy enough to start the season with this roster, but in case he is, I think in case he is, that means that we have a player that's unexpected, that's gonna be very, very good, a bit like Ishmael Kone last year. So if he has that kind of play, that kind of gem hidden somewhere between all those players that are called up, maybe the academy players or whatever, then maybe we can stay with the same squad, but I doubt it very much. And from what I know, we don't have that great talent that's hidden jewel in that squad. So we are going to see few additions before the beginning of the season, in my opinion. Now, Patrick has a good question, and I'm going to ask you, Elias, to answer it first. Do you think we will have a real second DP this year? We did always have two the last couple of years. We didn't, but
no, on paper we did.
Yeah, but you said a real second DP.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that's probably why he used the quotation marks around 2
exactly
because it was on paper.
That's a really good question. I genuinely don't think so, because I think if you're bringing someone that's going to earn that DP like tag, there would have at least been some kind of rumors, some kind of ideas floating around, and like yes, they're linked with a couple different attacking midfield options.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking at to designate someone as, if you're looking for a designated player, I don't think that Montreal is going to go out and, you know, compromise the development of some of their youth players, including, Matko Milovic and Sean Rea, who would probably fill the gap where a DP would be most useful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Sean Rea was one of the best players in the CPL last year, and I think that, I don't know if he has a starting spot right away, but I think that the objective for the club and for Rea should be for him to be a starter or a perennial starter by the end of the year, or by the three-quarter mark of the year, if they start making a real playoff push. He should be a given to start every game, right? I think that should be. I don't expect him to have a Kone type year where he takes off and becomes, gets capped and gets like a multi-million-dollar transfer to Europe. But I think that having him as a reliable starter on his first year would be a successful development in his first year back.
Agreed.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
but to answer the question, I don't think that there's going to be a second DP. I'd be very surprised, just because of the fact that, if they're going to bring a DP, it will be in that attacking midfield, that creative 10 role. And there's so many players right now in that they have, a very high ceiling that it will almost feel like I don't want to say a betrayal, because that's very dramatic, but it feels almost like, a letdown of their principles, right? Of this Projet Montréal, where they grow from with. If it was a real lack and there was a bona fide lack of depth in a position, and where it was like barren and there was nobody, then okay. But they do have players for every spot. So I think that the most important thing right now is obviously to bring in some depth, but to also improve their current players to the point where they can fill those roles. Because we saw flashes of it last year with Magko, where he did do well. And he's probably one of the most, this is an offhand comment that I noticed, but he's one of the most fouled players that I've seen in Montreal. He gets fouled.
It's very creative.
Yeah. So he has to, he needs to be better off ball. That's where Georgie really shined. That's where Milovic was exceptional, and where he found those gaps, and he could always just, all of a sudden he would pop up in a really dangerous position and nobody clocked it, right? I think that's something Milovic needs to get better at. But on the ball, he was very impressive last year, right? So having him and Sean Rea fighting for that spot, or even, if you need to go, having them both in the field at the same time can create a lot of headaches. But I think at the beginning of the season, at least, like you've said, it's a sore spot. But hopefully that the development, if they stay true to their principles, that development will lead that to being, one of their stronger positions.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm pretty sure we're going to see another MLS player acquired. I'll be very surprised if it's not the case. And it's either going to be an attacking midfielder or a striker. Because if they are ready to give their a real good chance to Sean Rea, to Matko Milovic, then it's going to be a player up front that's going to be acquired. So it's going to be either or, in my opinion. I don't see any other position where we'll be able to have a player. I still hope that my Paxton Pomykal will be signed, but we'll see. We'll see if it's possible with FC Dallas.
I don't see it making sense to bring Sean Rea in from the CPL just to have him play like third string.
I agree. I agree, but you never know. Maybe a trade is possible, right?
That
we'll see. You never know. So, guys, this is it for CF
Oh, we
Montreal.
also had Mark's question.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
after.
Okay. Right.
So we have Elias that decided to introduce a new segment to the pod. So let's
It's
go
coming.
ahead, I think, with the animation, Eve.
Yep. If I can stop closing. Here we go.
Yeah, so this is, I think it'd be cool to keep track of, especially the three more prominent departures that we've had. That's a really cool animation, by the way. I love that.
That
But
one was
we've had,
cute, actually. I found that one cute. Okay.
but we saw three high-profile departures, right? And to three different countries, and we've had all three of them get starts in this week, which was very, very, very exciting to see people leaving Montreal for good reasons and not because they struggled and couldn't and cut it, right. So you have Georgi Mihailovic, who got his first start at AZ Alkmaar. You have Alistair Johnston, who got a second start in a row with Celtic in Scotland, and you have obviously Ismail Kone, who started in the FA Cup against Reading. And all three of them, I managed to watch a decent amount of all three games, and they were all very impressive. Georgi Mihailovic played it basically the same way he did in Montreal. He operated right behind the striker. He found space and he linked up very well, I found, and was unlucky not to score that breakaway. And Ismail Kone as well, was very strong, and he got very high praise from the manager as well. So hopefully they can then continue to their growth, because it's obviously a good note for the Canadian national team, but it's also a very good note for Montreal that their exports are delivering, at least at the start, or have gone off to such a good debut in Europe. And there's obviously Johnston, who took part, his first ever game was in one of the most famous derbies in the world, and he very much held his own. He was up and down the right flank and contributed on both ends of the field. So it makes me proud to see that some of these players are delivering what was promised.
Agreed. No, I'm super thrilled. I thought Alistair Johnston, obviously he's had back-to-back now full 90-minute starts. So it seems to be like he's really taken like a fish to water there.
Yeah, and he was named in Team of the Week, Alistair Johnston, and you know what? Just playing in front of Juranovic, I think it is amazing. A semi-finalist at the World Cup. I think that's. Who would have thought that a Canadian
who also
player...
had an excellent tournament, by the way. He had an amazing
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Canadian player, 24 years old. We're not talking about a young guy in 18 because you're developing him to be the next star or whatever. He's 24, so he's confirmed now. Come and steal the position of a World Cup semifinalist, starter, and named in the Team of the Week. That's amazing. That's where Canada is at right now. Ismail Kone, the words that were said by his coach at Watford, saying that he made me smile again. And his coach is no spring chicken, right? He's Slaven Bilic, a very, very respected coach that coached West Ham for a while. Pretty sure that my friend Eve knows him very well because she's a PL staff.
EPL, yeah.
And yeah, so that's really amazing. And Georgie, it's really nice what he was able to do. It seemed like he was the focal points of that AZ Alkmaar team. So he wasn't just a player just making his debut. He was the player making his debut, and it seemed like it. Now, he did have this horrible shot that that went not even out of bounds, but wasn't strong enough to go out of bounds, and that really cracked me up a bit. But he was very, very, very good in that role, I think, with AZ Alkmaar, in my opinion. So yeah, so very interesting. So we'll be from time to time. Maybe we'll follow, the performances of ex CF Montreal that are playing in Europe. And thanks, Elias, for this amazing segment. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no, it's hopefully we get this. They keep it up, so we get to have more positive more positive addition to this segment and not just they were on the bench again. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. But that's why we won't always have this segment
Yeah.
on the show because I don't think they're going to be starters every week. But we'll see. So let's move on with our final segment, which is social media.
Did we want to do Mark's question though before
Oh,
we
yeah.
move on?
Next question. You're right. This time, you're right.
There we go.
So Mark Carvalho asks us, admittedly, you are not the first podcast I have asked this. That I'm very, very, very disappointed, Mark. Are you guys surprised at all how quickly Alistair Johnston has adjusted to Celtic and the SPL? So it's not the
Scottish
SPL, it's the Premiership in Scotland, and how he has seemingly already won over most of the fan base. So I'm going to let Elias answer since it's his segment first. What do you think about this comment, this question of Mark Carvalho?
I'm not surprised at all, and for the same reason he went over the Montreal fan base so quickly. You know, he's playing the same role, he's playing with the same quality. He's very intelligent. Obviously, you know, his physical attributes are the same, right? He's quick, he's strong, he's not afraid to dive into a challenge, and he's not afraid to, you know, win the ball back. And you know, he proved that his quality as a defender are not his only strong suit, right? Going forward, he got like a 97% pass success rate over the last 2 games, right? So his delivery and his versatility have continued into, you know, a much more demanding league. And I'm not at all surprised that he's adapted so well. I'm not surprised because fans in Montreal took to him immediately, right? It took one game and everyone's like, I love Alistair Johnston. So his presence on the field and his work ethic, right? No matter what club you support, if you see a player with a tremendous work ethic that's, you know, playing his position right, and especially as a defender, winning the ball back and driving play forward, you're automatically gonna support. So I'm not at all surprised. In fact, you know, there was a lot of hype going into it, and the fact that you know, not just him, but all three of the players kind of managed to meet or surpass the expectations is very impressive. And again, Alistair Johnston just did what Alistair Johnston does. He was exactly what was expected of him. It was just as effective. So it's very nice
They're
to see.
calling him the Canadian Cafu. I love it.
Nice.
It's so cute.
Oh, love it. Oh, love it.
I saw that a couple of times. I was like, oh my god. I was like, he's made it.
Oh, wow.
It warmed my heart a little bit.
And by the way, guys, just to let you know, we know that he was transferred for about 3 million at Celtic. And just for fun, I went on transfer market to see his value now. It's already at 6 million euros. So I don't know. He doubled value right away when he went to Celtic, and you know, his good performances, I'm pretty sure that it's going to increase more and more in the next
their window just opened up, right?
Huh?
The European window just opened up, right? So
yeah.
There's a lot of hype now, and everyone's, you know, constantly reevaluating players. So if you put good performances in now, it affects your stock more than ever. So
of course. So very interesting. Let's wait and see. So Mark, thanks for the question, my friend, loyal listener of the pod also. So thanks a lot for your questions, all of you guys, not only Mark, but everybody that sent us questions. Let's move on to social media with our last segment. So you can go ahead with the end. So shut me up with the animation.
I'm so sorry. I clicked it prematurely. I was just hovering there. I was like ready to go with my finger. Sorry about that, Hady.
You know, it's okay. It's okay. Go ahead. So let's start with the first tweet.
Yeah. Scroll.
So first tweet is from Giuseppe Campanelli. Personally, to remain a competitive team from what we built last year, signing a number 10 like Alan Senora would do it for me. It's been a while, and from what I understand, he wasn't interested in signing with CF Montreal. From what we heard, the rumors around a possible possible signature with the CF Montreal. What do you guys think?
I mean,
He
I think
was
we
one of
talked about
the
this a little while ago. Yeah.
yeah. He was
Sorry.
Go
one of the
ahead,
names
Elias. Sorry.
being right. He was one of the names being distributed around, and he was one of the names being talked about probably the most. And
Yeah.
his versatility in attack is probably the one of the better things about him. But again, as we talked about, in terms of finding a reliable 10, there are two in house right now that show a lot of promise. So
Mm-hmm.
someone would either have to take a massive minutes hit or play out of position. So I don't know how well that would gel. And again, he would always bring a lot of quality, but if you're looking at the long run of the project, I don't know if that's something that they're going to be considering.
Mm-hmm.
But it would obviously come with, there are pros and cons.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he's free, right? So he terminated his contract. So
Yeah.
that's also very positive. Eve, anything to add?
No, I would say like we had kind of talked about,
Yeah,
it wouldn't necessarily align with the philosophy given the number of young players available to play that position.
yeah,
But like if we are looking at it as to be competitive immediately, yeah, then I agree. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
yeah. Okay, we'll see if that's
Yep.
a route that CF Montreal will choose. So let's move on with the
Indeed.
second tweet. And it's from Peter Galindo, a fellow journalist. Ishmael Kone begins the game on the left side of the double pivot in a 3-4-1-2. It's
Hmm.
like he never left CF Montreal. It's nice. It's like that
Yep.
Watford is copying Wilfried Nancy's tactics in a way. No, I'm joking. It's just funny. I just
Hmm.
thought that
Cute.
this tweet funny. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
let's move on with the third one.
And
Yeah.
Ishmael Kone should be really comfortable at Watford because they're always turning over coaches. So I think I said that before. I think I made that joke already. So he should not only do they play the same formation, but they have all sorts of staffing drama. So
You're getting old, Eve, repeating your
I
jokes.
I watch out. Yeah. Yeah. New year, no new jokes, sorry. All right, let's
Yeah,
move on.
third tweet. So it's from Ron Coombs, CF Montreal, right? Has to be Montreal. He'd be toast of the town and the hair. It's a match made in heaven. Talking about Theodore Twellman tweet saying, keep an eye on Olivier Giroud. Turned down the latest offer from Milan. Has real interest in coming to MLS. Is currently exploring it with a few teams. 36 years old, but still fit and in the right situation. He works
Oops.
and could score goals. Eve, what do you think? Olivier
I've
Giroud?
I've I get it because he's French and everything, and obviously he's a beautiful man to look at as well. But I think I just get the feeling. I don't have any like knowledge to back this up. Obviously, I just have the feeling that he's one of those players who would not come to MLS like because he wanted to play for a certain team, more so because he wanted to live in a certain city. So I feel like he would be one of those, oh, I want to go to New York, or I want to go to LA, or I want to go to Florida or
Miami.
Miami. Yeah, exactly. So I kind of get like the gist that if he were to come to MLS, it would be something like that. That's just my personal opinion, though. Like I have, and I don't mean to like insult him in any way. He's obviously a huge competitor, but yeah, that's just my feeling.
Elias, anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubting his quality. I
Yeah.
personally think that he would thrive in Oshilaga. He would do great, and he would fit right in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I
but
love it.
But I mean, the plateau is full of French
the
people.
Yeah.
Plateau is also there. Plateau's a bit young for him, but I feel like he would also fit
Are
right
you
in.
saying he's
But
old? If he's old, I'm what? I'm an ancestor.
Yeah.
but in terms of a on-field product, I mean, he's one of the best poachers, and he's one of the last poachers, right? Proper world-class poachers in
Mm-hmm.
in world football. So I think he would do well.
I wouldn't
But
say last poachers, but yeah.
well, one of the last very prominent poachers, right? Because nowadays even the big strikers that would become poachers are
Yeah.
asked to do more now. Like they're
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
drop deep, supposed to help. Like even Erling Haaland is asked to drop deep, and he's
Mm-hmm.
He's
20
the
years ago he
poacher.
would be planted in the middle of the box and told to just stay there, right?
Yeah.
So So, he would obviously fit in well. I don't know how well his hold up play would do with Montreal because, again, Montreal is very possession based. So they wouldn't be asking that of him, which is one of his biggest attributes.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think you've made a good point where it's one of those big signings that maybe is looking to come to MLS to be in a certain environment, and maybe Montreal doesn't have that for him.
yeah,
Maybe looking somewhere like a big city, a big American city, which is I'm
yeah.
not knocking that. Like you said, it's people come, especially at the end of their careers, people want to play where
Mhm.
they want to play, and if you
Yeah.
Yeah,
attain a
but
certain
look,
level,
look
where
at
you can,
Drogba. Look at Drogba. He came here because he had a lot of friends here
Mhm.
in
yeah,
Montreal,
Yeah.
right?
exactly.
And there was a
No,
big
that's
Ivorian community, so that's
yeah.
possible also for Giroud. But I wanted to add also, we already have an aging striker, and I don't think it's good
That's
to
also
have
true.
another
No,
aging
I also
striker
agree.
with Romel Kyoto and Toy having so many injuries. I
Mhm.
don't think he's the right fit for Montreal, even in I think he would be a great addition marketing wise
Oh
and
yeah.
great for the club. But if you're talking about a future, talking about building something, for the next few years, you need
Mm-mm.
a young striker
Yeah.
with the other four strikers that we have up front. So
Agreed.
yeah,
Very much agreed. That's a good point.
fourth tweet.
There we go.
And it's from Afrikaans. In no particular order, there are some resolutions, goals, questions I've thought about for the soccer footy in Canada. I'll post one a day. The first one was very interesting. So the Canadian national team must win a trophy this year, either Nations League or Gold Cup.
Hmm.
You know what? I 100% agree with Africans. We need to win something. I said it, I think,
Mhm.
during the last few pods when we covered
Yeah.
the Canadian national team. I think
Yeah.
it's time that we win silverware. What do you guys think?
Very much agree. Very much. Yeah. And like it's hard to trash talk, if we want to be up there with the US and Mexico. It's hard to trash talk when there's cobwebs filling up our trophy cabinet.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, I
yeah.
actually,
So
I agree 100%. I actually wrote something for Yahoo about this, where there's two Gold Cups. There's a Nations League, and there's also potentially a Copa America between now
Yeah.
and the World Cup, right? And
Hmm.
this is your golden generation will be at the peak of their powers. They'll all be like,
Hmm.
in their early to mid 20s. This will be the best opportunity to not win the trophy, but make a run that
Yeah.
you have ever had and maybe ever will have, right? Because you never know when you're going to have this kind of timing again. And absolutely, the pressure is on, Canada Soccer to get every single detail right, be it with, squad selection, be it even with, like making sure John Herdman is the right man for the job. All of this is
Hmm.
like, the pressure is on, right? There's no second chance. So again, I'd
Yep.
like to see them win a Gold Cup, but I also want to see them, if they do end up, it's looking more likely, but if they do end up going to Copa America with Mexico and the US,
yeah,
that
yeah,
they first of all make the knockout stages, but also you
Hmm.
know give teams a run for their money, because they have to start getting regular minutes against top teams in a
yeah,
competitive setting.
Yep.
yeah.
Because friendlies are good, but you need
Yeah,
to
but
start playing for keeps.
that's not enough, Elias. We've seen Qatar winning the Asian Cup and going, I
Yeah.
think, to the semifinals at the Copa America, if I'm not mistaken.
The
Semifinals.
Gold Cup.
No, they went to Copa America to Qatar.
Yeah.
Qatar went to the Gold Cup as well, though, and they
Yeah, but I
yeah.
think they went to Copa America. I think they reached.
Oh,
They
okay.
made
Sorry,
the
out
quarter-
that. Yeah,
yeah, I think they made the
don't
Yeah,
something
quarterfinals of
like
Copa
that.
America as well.
yeah. So
But that's
so
the
you
thing, though.
know,
Your experience now is your most important thing, and
Mm.
you have to start getting, because again, playing friendlies against top teams is good and all, but it's in a friendly environment. If you're playing
Mhm.
for a major trophy, the stakes are that much higher, the
Yeah.
crowd is that much more hostile, and the players play that much harder. So you need to put
Mhm.
yourself in these situations where
Yeah.
you don't end up becoming
I
shell
agree.
shocked, or yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Mhm.
So I think we have one more tweet, if I'm not
We
mistaken,
sure do.
and it's from Jade Riviere. First time
Yay.
touching a ball since surgery back in September, and I'm back like I never left.
Oh my
Come
God, I'm
back,
so happy.
loading. Eve,
I'm
very
so
excited to see
happy.
Jade Riviere back, right?
Oh my gosh, so excited. And I mean, like Bianca St. George did do a really, really good job filling in. And credit to her for sure. But Jade Riviere, she's so young. She has so much potential. Especially after she had a strong showing at the Arnold Clark Cup. And even then there were kind of some kind of teasing rumors of potential European interest. So I was so disappointed to see her pick up her big injury, right basically at the start of the NCAA season. So thrilled to see her coming back. Hopefully this means she'll be match fit for the World Cup. Might be a little premature to have her participate as she believes. But nonetheless, really, really excited to see that she's getting on the ball at long last.
Yeah. It's I think it's going to be very interesting. But yeah, I'm happy to see that we have enough depth at right back with the
Yeah.
national team with Jade Riviere, of course, Ashley Lawrence, and now Bianca Saint Georges. So I think we're set on that position with
Yeah.
the women's national team. Hopefully, we'll have that much depth on the left hand side because that's where our problem is.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we will have enough players. So that's it for social media, I guess.
Yeah.
Hope you guys liked it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Hady.
Perfect. So, guys, that's it for our show. First of all, thanks a lot, Elias, for being here with us today. And in the next coming weeks, so you're going to see a lot more from Elias. I hope that you guys will give him a very warm welcome for his first pod as being a regular. So
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
that's really nice. We had
definitely.
fun.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely did. Yeah.
And
Thank you so much.
and
This is a
Eve,
this is great.
yeah.
Well, it's you again, Eve. I'm
And,
joking.
and and Eve, you know what? I'm like, it's just thank you for being here. But I'm gonna get used to you. It's
Exactly.
when are you gonna leave so we can replace you? No, I'm joking.
Oh boy, we're about to have a TBR throwdown.
No, but thanks a lot, Eve, for being here
Of
also
course.
this week. Guys, thank you for listening. Everyone, don't forget, we do have a Patreon page. Of course, this content will always be free because this is what we want to do. We want to keep that content free. But feel free if you want to help us, if you want to help us, move forward and stay motivated and keep on producing content. Feel free to go on our page on Patreon and contribute to this beautiful project that we have right now. Thanks a lot, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next week for another episode of The Ball is Round.